All right, take number 7. We're not going to go into why there are 7 takes of this video. He's asleep in the next room. Anyway, this is the rough cut of the y-tho-bow video. It's going to be much more like a stream of consciousness type of thing, because I'm terrible at organizing my thoughts, ADHD, huge distractions, living in my house as well. But I'm excited about this video, and I want to start by saying this thing is amazing. I love the hell out of this thing. I want to make it as competitive as humanly possible. I want to run it in wars. I want to rack up a huge body count with it. I'm like actually really, really excited about this masterpiece right here. Now, a couple of things I want to say first. Jade printed me this one. I'm not sure, still not quite sure if it's the most updated version. I think it is. That being said, I know that Artificial Armors, I think I got that right, are working on a couple of different versions of this, so there's going to be some new cool stuff I'm really excited to see, and I would love to get into with this thing once I get the chance. But I want to talk about 4 main topics today. I want to talk about technique, which would be what, from a coach's standpoint, a competitor's standpoint, carries over from archery. You can't see it, but I have a bunch of my bows laid out over here for visual aids. What carries over from archery to the actual use of the y-bow. The main thing that I noticed is that the y-bow, because it has a long barrel, it's about, I want to say, a foot or so. I haven't actually measured it, but this sticks out a good portion from the grip. It essentially makes it, this is going to sound weird, a left-handed pistol as far as your shooting style goes. You want to make sure that your left hand, your bow arm, is as stable as humanly possible. That carries over with archery, but especially for this, because if you torque, if torquing means twisting it even a little bit, your shot is now aimed way to the side of the person you were trying to hit. You're gonna have a hard time. You want to keep this barrel as straight as possible through your shot and as stable as possible through your shot, because it takes a little bit for the arrow to leave the barrel. It's not always going to leave perfectly straight. You want to make sure you minimize that margin for error as much as possible. In the third topic, the topic of the bow, where I'm actually going to talk about like ergonomics and stuff like that, I have some ideas for potentially improving this thing's accuracy and consistency, but we'll get to that in a minute. First things first, with archery and with use of the y-bow, you're going to want to make sure you're getting at least most of the draw. This thing has a very long plunger. The further back you pull it, the more velocity your shot is going to have. Now, that being said, the best way to make sure you're consistently doing this is your alignment. Your alignment is how you position your body. Now, I'm going to put this down for a second and show you this really shitty drawn picture that I made, because I can't do graphics. This is the alignment of an archer from the top down, being the head, the rear shoulder, the front shoulder, the bow arm, the draw elbow. Creating this triangle creates a very, very stable shape, which will allow you to hold the bow back for longer and hold it back much steadier. That being said, if you're holding this thing back for more than 6 seconds to line up a shot, you've already missed your shot. You need to get back into cover because you're going to get tagged. The play style with this is quick. You need to be aware of your surroundings. You need to be aware of your opponents. You need to know where they're looking, who they're focusing on, what they're going to try to do next. This thing is perfect for taking out rushing players, for pinning people down. You do not want to try to get into a sniper duel if your opponent is very well entrenched. You want to be paying attention to who's trying to move. You want people pinned. Your job is to control the flow of the battlefield, lock down a lane, make sure you're manipulating lines of sight. There's a bunch of shit that I could go into, but I'm not going to get too in-depth on that right yet. I'll talk about that in the combat tactics. That's at the end here. Oh, I think I just heard the crib. I think he's good. I think we're good. Okay, so that being said, The next thing you want to pay attention to is your grip. The first thing you want to pay attention to is your grip. Now, this grip is pretty comfortable. Like, I like it. I'm used to different things from archery. I'll show you what I mean when we get to the second section, the bow section. But when you grip the bow, you want it to sit on the meat of your thumb, and you want tension between your index finger and your thumb to hold that thing stable. Maybe rest your fingertip on the bottom here so that you're not like twisting it up and down, because this is a very forward grip. What I mean by forward is your wrist is very forward when using it, rather than being a higher grip, which is like your hand is higher. The issue with the forward grip is then it increases your likelihood to flick your wrist down, which then will cause your barrel on the release to just go, and then you know that this is going to result in your dart missing way low and not going nearly as far as you thought it would. So, yes, third thing I want to talk about is your release. When you let go, you want to make sure that you're just letting your hand go super, super limp. Almost no feedback from your hand. You want it to just be like a jellyfish, like boneless. When you draw, getting to your full draw, you want your elbow in line with the plunger tube the whole time. You want to align your shoulders and compress your shoulder blades. Little view from the back, little view from the front, little view from my other back. Now, the reason we do this is in archery, when we're holding a lot more weight, this is probably about 20-ish pounds of draw, not a lot of weight, from what I would consider. This is my competition rig. This is about 40 pounds of tension, almost double what that is, and I hold that for about 6 or 7 seconds per shot. This monster right here, this is about 50 pounds of tension. It's a very long bow. As you can see, the y-bow is very short by comparison to an actual traditional bow. I'm looking for my finger protector, my shooting tab, to demonstrate. I'm going to put an arrow on here just to be safe. I have a target in the closet here, so I'm not worried about putting a hole through the wall. But when you draw, you can hold a lot more tension way steadier by getting into that proper alignment. And it's super important. It will make or break your shot, how stable you are, how smooth your release is, which is why I say anything longer than 6 seconds, you should not be taking that shot. You are probably already drawn the attention of one of your enemy team. They're probably about to let go or pull the trigger on one of their own shots. You're in trouble. The other thing too is your muscles will fatigue faster. You're going to end up way tired and way shaky 2 games in, and if you switch to a Springer, you're done. If your Springer is as heavy as mine, I have a T26 in there, even like, you're going to have a hard time pumping it. It's going to be uncomfortable after a little while. It's going to be a little tricky to be effective for the rest of the day unless you take like a 2-round break. That's just personal experience. Playing archery tag, if you can believe that. Yeah, so I want to make sure, I'm just going to look at my notes real quick. Yeah, when you're releasing, you want to make sure that your motion, I'm going to grab my stretch band right here because this helps a little bit. Your motion and your release is as linear as possible. That's the other reason for the elbow straight back. You want to be drawing back through your shot so that your hand is moving in a straight line, so that your front arm is moving in a straight line, so that your wrist isn't twisting, but rather pushing forward ever so slightly. It's a nice even push and pull motion that you want to maintain. Light tension. You don't want to be yanking this thing as hard as you can. You will break it. But that linear motion will save your shot. Your follow through is very important too. This is very much like one-to-one with what I'm used to with a recurve. I love it to death. I can't wait to make this thing into a monstrosity because I have so many plans for this thing. All right, now, topic number 2, I'm going to take a drink real quick, is going to be the bow itself, likes, dislikes, things I've noticed, blah, blah, blah. So, first things first, and I have it on my notes right here. Oh, shoot, I just lost a 4-leaf clover. Yeah. Oh, I lost 3 of them. Fudge. Hold on one second. I don't want to misplace these. They're very important to me. There we go. I just put them on the screen of my Switch so I know where they were. Anyway, you don't care about that. First thing. Okay, there's a dude right outside my window. First thing's grip. Again, super, super nice grip. It's a little bit of a forward grip. It comes to an almost oval-like shape right about here, which is not necessarily uncomfortable. And then you can kind of clearly see the contours for your thumb and this section, which is just no finger contact at all. The little swell for your palm, little view from the back. Because of the color of mine, it can be kind of hard to see. But you can almost see a little groove here. I won't say it's uncomfortable. I'm used to different things. First thing I know, first is Bear Grizzly. This is a 35-pound recurve at 28 inches of draw. I want to show the riser off just as a comparison. This portion here you can see is polished, very smooth from use. I shot this bow a lot. So this ridge here would be the thumb ridge, where the meat of your palm just sits in there. This is a bit of a higher grip. This is what I'm more what I'm used to with my bows. A little view from the front, you can see it's a similar geometry, just not as severe of a curve on the off side of the hand, so the palm coming around here. This is the little palm swell here. It's not super severe, it's nice and small. It still has a good amount of meat on it. Then the back, it doesn't really carry over on the camera, but the back is very much a straight slant going across. Here it's very flat. It is almost no ridge, and the ridge is tilted slightly this way, so that this portion here fits into your hand nice and comfortably. Here's another example. This is a Fleetwood Summit. This is my first bow. Once again, you can see the grip is polished with use. The shinier bits being where your hand is more frequently. This was a little bit less of a comfortable grip. It is a higher grip, but as you can see, it digs into the right here. It's a little uncomfy. It's a meatier side here. There's still that little space for your thumb, but again, it's a very smooth flat, so it maintains, again, meat for structural stability. And it still has that semi-flat ridge. Here's another one. This one I already showed you. It was my Bear Super Kodiak, 50 pounds of tension. This one's a little bit more swoopy, a little bit more rounded, but it's the same basic deal. You've got the throat, a little bit of thumb space, a nice flat side here. This section is more or less flat, wide this way. The palm swell is very slight. There we go, very slight. And it fits into my hand really nicely. This is probably one of my favorite traditional bow grips. Lastly, the best grip on the goddamn market, but it's patented. Rip. This thing. This is the JD3 grip. That's the name of the grip. It is designed the same way. However, if you look, and I'll try to get a good focus on this. If you look at the handle, maybe with natural light, yeah, there we go. You look at the handle, it's very, very flat. There's a little bit of a ridge here. I'm having trouble because the bow is so long it's hitting the ceiling. But this is the ridge, and then there's a sharp ridge here. Now I really like this. This ridge right here that I'm showing you is on the bow hand side. So it digs into this line of my thumb right here very consistently, very, very consistently, which makes it very easy to follow through and release and keep my release straight so that I'm not twisting my shots, flicking them up and down. I have a nice stable shot and follow through. Now, that being said, is my biggest criticism about this bow is not even the criticism. It's just I'm used to something different. I do think that the geometry would help the consistency of the weapon. However, I'm not going to claim it's critical because I've been getting tags with this thing pretty easily. It's pretty dope. But yeah, the other thing I want to talk about is the finger piece. Now, the finger piece itself is seated behind the string here, so you're gaining a little bit of draw length without having to pull having to pull back a little bit farther to get full plunger actuation. Now, not a bad thing. It's about 29 inches from I want to say from max engagement. It's like a little bit further than my natural draw, which I anchor up here in my cheek when I shoot. So my draw is about 28.5 inches or something like that. But when I anchor with this, I always find myself elbow straight back, getting into my alignment first, and then using the string as my anchor point, like I'm making facial contact here. Now, the finger piece itself, I feel like isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's quite comfortable. I'm used to 3 under, and most archers are going to be used to this. It's using 3 fingers, 2 fingers, and then another finger over the arrow, or all 3 fingers under the arrow. That's a very common thing with archers. They are always one or the other. So not having that 3 fingers, I'm finding that I'm getting a little bit more strain on the tendons in my forearm than I'm used to, which is weird because I hold 40 pounds as my standard target bow, and that's what I shoot the most. I realize I'm not in frame. The shooting quality is terrible. I don't have a stand, so I'm using my iPad propped up on a lamp. Yeah, so the finger piece. Your clean release is critical for your shot, so the finger piece does affect that. Its geometry is good. I like the little, almost like whale tail shape here. It's very comfortable to slide my fingers in. I just wish I had a little bit on the bottom here to stick my ring finger on. Reason being is most of the tension when you draw a bow is on your index and middle finger, and the ring finger is there to alleviate that excess tension so that you have a cleaner release. Anything more than that, 4 fingers, 5 fingers, don't. Don't. I was primarily self-taught, and I made every possible mistake in archery that you could possibly imagine making over the course of my development. Now, another thing I wanted to note is that all of the tension in the bow runs through this central piece. Do not modify this much, because if you increase your poundage, like if you try to increase your weight on this, if you're familiar with archery and the physics behind it, you're more likely to cause the bow to snap at the grip here or up here, have the carbon fiber rods just crack through, or worse, the dry firing, the hammer is, or the plunger, I call it a hammer because it's essentially hammering into the base of this thing every single shot. You're going to end up blowing straight through the front of it. I heard that was an issue in testing. I don't think it's an issue anymore. I've not experienced it. I've not seen it. I've not heard anything about it, so do not quote me on this. But if any form of like modification to this portion of the bow, trying to get a little extra FPS out of the limbs, you're better off trying to find a different way to upgrade the FPS, because it can be delicate with designs like this. Sometimes if you tweak it too much, you might not be able to handle the punishment. You never know. Anyway, it has a Y hopper that I notice double feeds quite a bit, but it's not inconsistent. All you got to do is just hold the hopper tube straight up and down and just kind of jimmy it. And then when you draw, you'll kind of hear a like suction noise coming from the back end, and you'll feel like a resistance up here. That's a dart seating, getting ready to be fired. Then when you release, this massive air volume here gets driven into the dart. It's a miracle this thing doesn't hit harder than it does. I honestly, it's 180 FPS average on full draw. That's enough to be competitive. You're going to want medium range engagements with this anyway, because long range accuracy is not this thing's strong suit. You're better off with a rifle that you can shoulder for something like that, but if you're shooting long range like that, you're probably pushing 200, 230 FPS. You just stick with the rifle, dude. It's not the play style. I have a SCAR barrel attached to mine because every little bit of accuracy counts when you're running any kind of semi-automatic blaster. The more consistently your blaster is performing, the more likely you are to hit the shots when you're panicking, even if you're using worn darts. I've got one of Jade's custom scars that she designed on here. It's really actually pretty awesome. I have another one on my Talonclaw Bullpup, which is my DMR essentially, and that thing is a beast. The one thing that I would lament is that the cap is kind of meh. I'm getting files from Jade for Gordon's custom design. What the hell was his internet name? They told me in the first war and I completely forgot, and I feel like such a douche. Armistice Designs? I think it's Armistice Designs. He has a flip cap that supposedly gets a really good seal. I've noticed that occasionally I'll have this come blasting off if I have too many darts feeding. That's the other thing. This thing will double feed sometimes. Makes a great shotgun. It sounds stupid, but if someone's rushing you and you put down a good shot with two of these things in the chamber, you got them. You're good. You're golden. It doesn't matter if you're a little bit off. One of them's probably going to hit your target. It's super cool. So yeah, the next thing I want to talk about, this. So the limb tips, if you notice the shape of them, they're wide, like this. Now, I don't know if this is an issue with this particular design, because again, I'm not the designer. I've only spoken to them very briefly too, so I don't really have a lot of information on how this processed out. But they're, as you can see, very thin on this side, and facing the bow, very thick on this side. Now, I'll show you the limb tips on the Bear Grizzly. Notice how it's very, very thin. It's to prevent torque. Increased torque on bows can cause them to snap during use. Both limbs twisting is a really big problem. That's like one of the biggest things you want to look out for when you're buying a bow. Make sure the limbs aren't twisted because they will not shoot accurately at all. Same deal with the Bear Super Kodiak. It's a reinforced limb tip, so here's the wood itself, and then there's like micarta, which is a very solid, like, I think it's a plasticky artificial material, I'm not sure, to reinforce it, and see how it's wider this way and thinner this way. Now, again, I don't know if that contributes negatively to the effectiveness of the bow. I don't know if it contributes to the wear and tear on the bow. Again, I've only had it for a little bit, so I'd like to put more play time in with this thing, really put it through its paces and see where it's at. Hold on, I'm just gonna check real quick. Yeah, okay, I covered all the points I wanted to for the bow. Cool. Next up is combat. There's a couple of things talking about your tall cover is going to be your friend here. When you're using this thing, it has a very long profile, so you want to make sure that you are using cover that is going to be good for you. I would recommend choosing a limb color and a bow color that is neutral. The harder this thing is to see, the more people you're going to catch off guard with it. Catching people off guard with it is almost a guaranteed tag, and that's your play style that you want to emulate with this thing. It's a hunter kind of deal. You want to know what the opponent's shooting at, you want to know who's watching you, and you want to hit the guy who's not paying attention, hanging too far out of cover. It's good for picking off targets, it's good for suppressing fire, scaring people. You put a couple darts past their face with this thing, and they're going to think twice about poking their head out. Don't get dropped by fakes. Fakes are your worst enemy. If you see someone take a second to line up your shot. Don't just snap the shot because you see somebody's head start to poke. That on the flip side, fakes are your friend with this thing. You're gonna want to contest other springers. You can reload faster. You can fire accurately. You want them to shoot first so they're vulnerable. Yes, they may pop back behind cover, but more likely than not, they're panicking, so they may not move fast enough, and you'll have a chance to catch them. I got a couple of tags that way at our last war. It works really, really well. I've heard forest games are a blast with this thing. I haven't had a chance to try a forest game because we don't play in the woods. We play on a flat top gravel with cars as cover. That's what I'm used to using, cars or like tall, thin barricades, and sometimes really short ones. But this thing is really nice. Your go-tos are going to be locking down lanes, targeting, taking out springers. Whatever you do, do not contest a flywheeler with this thing. You will get outgunned by a flywheeler. That being said, you can keep them at substantial distance with this thing, so it's not a huge issue. Just make sure you're playing well with your teammates, keeping with a group of people. Hang out with someone who complements your weaknesses on the battlefield. If you know that you get tunnel vision sometimes, pair up with somebody who's more alert. They'll making call-outs. A flywheeler would make a great companion for this thing, just as a buddy on the field. If you have a friend who runs a flywheeler consistently, hang out with them, stay near them. Their suppressing fire is going to be really good for you to pick targets and take your shots. Play stealth, control lines of sight. You don't want to be out in the open with this thing. Yes, you can be effective with it. You're losing your advantage, though. The advantage of this thing really is catching people off guard and popping out of nowhere. The same could be said for most springers, but this is going to be your, like, it's really cool for that playstyle. It's so much fun. And when you're going one-on-one with somebody, go for the headshot. It sounds controversial saying that out loud, but if somebody's only presenting a head for a target, hit him in the head. Like, you're going to be poking up over cover with just your head, top of your head peeking out. Like, how am I supposed to tag out? Shoot your blaster? You're not going to call your blaster. Like, what? I probably cut that whole portion out. That's just personal opinion. Anyway, loadouts. I heard from the designers that one of the more popular loadouts for it is a flywheeler that can be holstered, and I think that's a genius idea. Part of me wants to do an elite mod on my Ultra. Ultra 2. I think this would be a great companion for this, mostly because it's like the whole hand cannon thing. I'm a fan of revolvers, but a revved up Ultra 2 would be great. Pop it out of the holster. You don't even have to put the bow down. Pop it out of the holster. Rattle off a couple of shots. Put it right back in. Keep going at range. If somebody's pushing you in cover, you're going to want something, a really, really solid sidearm, to fall back on, specifically because you can't beat a sidearm that you know really well. I use this. This is my 5-shot TKO. I love this thing to death. I talk way too much about it. All the people in my group are annoyed with me because of how much I talk about it. I keep it in a drop leg holster, always 1-shot loaded, so that I have a second shot in an emergency. If I need it, it just comes straight out. It's ready to go. I don't have to worry about anything. I didn't mean to point that at the camera. That was accidental. It's really, really nice. It hits about 110 FPS, 5 shots. I'm rambling again. Sorry. Yeah. But I'm thinking about getting like one of the concept pistols, the little flywheelers that has the what the hell is it called? It's a DVZ I'm gonna have to script this shit. Holy crap, I've been talking for a long time. Loadouts, yes. All you really need is a dump pouch for your ammo. Reloading this thing is troublesome, so plan your shots, take your time, keep enough distance that you can reload, keep your sidearm ready in case someone pushes, because you need to load the darts one by one. It takes a while. I heard a rumor that they were experimenting with a bow-on quiver of like speed loaders. I don't know if there's anything to that rumor, I've seen pictures, but I'm not going to say that publicly because I don't know what I'm allowed to say or not. It has a little clip here, almost for a carabiner. I feel like a really tight sling, like a very, very short sling, would be okay with this, but I would not recommend trying to put a sling on this thing, simply because it would get in the way when you need to raise it to shoot it. It would wrap around the string, or it would have to go through the string, and then you would have to grab it at a weird angle and tuck it at a weird angle. It just doesn't seem to work well. I would love to see Picatinny on this side so that I could do some kind of like magnetic holster or some kind of like, I don't know, I was thinking with the shape of it, you could probably do like a low harness and like a magnet on the right side of your back, and it would be low profile enough that you could actually move around cover and not worry about getting tagged. But using a Springer as a sidearm puts you at a bit of a disadvantage for now, until you figure something out. But that goes with the mods, more so with the mods section, which I was going to say, modifying this thing is probably not the best idea. I wouldn't try tweaking it too much if I were you. At most, like cleaning up sharp edges or like little stuff like that would probably be the best, but don't tinker with it too much. This is an interesting piece of equipment. That being said, it could be pretty easy to screw this up if you don't understand the mechanics behind it, so be careful. Watch for wear on your nylon string. It's pretty sturdy, but as you can see from use, I've already got a huge like amount of rub going on here. Most of it is being caused by the edges of the little hole here. The other thing too is when you're storing a bow, you don't want to store them strung. I don't know if that counts for this, but it will preserve your bow's like maximum power if you just slip the loop over the top limb, just like that. See that? And then boom. It's super cool. Also, if you need to disassemble it, you can then pull the limbs out from the handle, pull it side, hold it, like pack it sideways, and you'll be less likely to break it. And then putting the string back on is super easy. All you need to do is essentially just put it on the top of your shoe and push straight down on the top limb. It will like very easily bend enough that you can put the string right back on. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say. I haven't had a chance to do a lot of test firing with the Scar barrel. I put it on, I want to say 3/4 of the way through the day on our last war, and I noticed improvement, but I didn't get enough opportunities to actually get in firefights with it. So I can't say if it helped or hurt, but it definitely didn't hurt. I think that's everything. Cool, finally.